and welcome to Space Ventures' latest live stream. My name is Jivika and I'm the operations manager here at Space Ventures. It's been a while since we did one of these, but I'm so excited to be back because we have an incredible show lined up for you. Today, we are going to go live with tropical weather analytics, which is providing next generation weather data for better prediction of hurricanes and other weather phenomena to save lives and livelihood. So they're using paired satellites to do this, and I'm going to pass to their founders in just a minute to explain that further. But before we do, I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping and make sure everyone can participate in the chat because this is going to be a very interactive day. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just go into the comments, go into the description and click on the link that will take you to watch this on Space Ventures, because that's the best viewing experience. And that's the way you're going to be able to participate in the chat. Our team is also going to be in the chat. They're going to be dropping links with additional information. So you'll have all you need to participate in all the segments that we have going. And if you've seen our messaging around this, you can tell we're incredibly excited because we've got trivia. We've got a cooking segment, and we've got, of course, our regular Q&A, and then we've also got prizes, and we're going to announce the name of TWA's paired satellites. So there's a lot coming at you, and we want you to be able to participate in all of it. So go ahead, let's just make sure everyone is able to join and everyone is able to comment in. I'm streaming live from Los Angeles today. Where are you guys streaming from? And let's also add or where are you guys joining us from? Let's just also add what the weather is like for you outside. So Los Angeles is obviously known for being very sunny, but this weekend has been very rainy and it's kind of outcast right now. It's very dark and gray. And I'm one of those weird people who loves this weather, so I'm extremely happy right now. But let us know where you are joining us from and what the weather is like over there. I'm still gonna wait a couple more minutes for people to start, putting that in the chat so we can make sure that everyone is good to go. Nicole from Brownsville, thunderstorms. Okay, wow, that's more dramatic than my story, but there we go. And then one last thing, because we're gonna be doing a quiz in just a minute, I want everyone to be familiar with how we're gonna be running that. There are prizes on the line, so I know some of you are very competitive. So the instructions for that is we're going to be using a website called Kahoot. So you'll need to get your phones out in a little bit, and you'll want to go to, I think we can get the instructions on screen. Yeah, we'll go to kahoot.it. And then the code that you want to enter is 647-2216. Brennan, thank you for joining us from Salt Lake City. Blue skies, lovely to see that, to hear about it rather. And this Kahoot link is also going to be put into our chat. We're going to have that play as we're going through this, and we'll have another opportunity just before trivia happens for you to log in as well. So don't worry if you're not quite sure what this means, but just remember when it's time for trivia, you're going to want to go to kahoot.it and input that code. All right, so I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass to Ilya Schiller, who is the president of TWA.
Thank you, Jivika. I'm Ilya Schiller, president of TWA. Welcome to our live stream. We have something special cooking for you today. TWA is making a difference in climate change, weather forecasting, and we're building a professional business by doing that. TWA's mission is to leverage its space-proven, NASA award-winning measurement technology to save thousands of lives and reduce the billions of dollars lost to climate change suffered by businesses and governments each year. We're launching Hurricane Hunter satellites that will measure unique properties of clouds and winds in 3D. Why is it important? That translates to actionable weather forecasts that will be used by many industries that rely on weather for their bottom line, like agriculture, transportation, energy, and insurance, as well as better warning for extreme disastrous events like hurricanes and wildfires. All of these markets are willing to spend money to get improved data. You've no doubt noticed unusual heat waves and droughts across the globe, in Europe, especially in France this summer, and devastating flood in Pakistan and in the US. There has been never more important to get our satellites into orbit to reduce the human and economic impact. Private weather is very much alive and profitable. There is need for satellite-based weather information that has been recognized since first satellite have been used for weather, starting in 1960. Pay attention, this may be on a quiz. We have 15 days left to close this deal, and we ask you to invest. Thank you. And now let me introduce next A.T. Stair, the TWA CEO, with important business announcement.
Hello, everyone. I go by my initials. I'm A.T. Stair. I'm the CEO of TWA. I've got a long history in space. Got started when I actually saw Sputnik come across the night sky as a moving star. And I heard the beeps on my radio, and it sent chills all over my body. So with that start, I've been doing a lot of things in space. I was the chief scientist of the first Department of Defense payload on the Space Shuttle, STS-4. And I've been the principal investigator on multiple rocket and satellite projects over many years. I retired as chief scientist of the Air Force Geophysics Laboratory here in the Boston area. And I became president of Visidyne and subsequently the architect and chief scientist of a joint Russian and American program called RAMOS. And that's a precursor of the TWA technology, which we've continued to pursue on the International Space Station. And then we formed TWA to commercialize the technology. And I'm one of the co-founders with my MIT colleagues. I'm not an MIT graduate, but my colleagues were, and brought the Visidyne team on board with us. And I'm very excited that TWA has a partner now, Canada Weather Analytics. It's a privately held corporation headquartered in a suburb of Montreal with offices in Toronto. It's truly a North American enterprise. And so leveraging the TWA three-dimensional technology, CWA is going to concentrate on the polar regions. And as you can see in this view graph, it's real. And the polar regions and jet streams are drivers of regional weather worldwide. So together, we're bringing our planet's next generation three-dimensional data for weather forecasting. CWA's president, Jean Genet, was an early TWA investor, a test pilot school graduate. He was chairman of the flight test section of the Canadian Aeronautics and Space Institute in the 1990s. Jean is co-owner of Polar Air Aviation, a maintenance and repair organization providing services to Tier 1 airlines, that's the major airlines, and OEMs worldwide since 1972. And he's resigning that position to focus on space as the president of CWA. Joining Jean for vice president is Lawrence Goodman, who's the founder and president of Fusar, Canadian company Fusar Technology International. He has managed a global network of R&D, manufacturing, distribution, and logistics for some 30 years. So as a takeaway, remember it takes a pair of sensors for stereo to get to 3 dimensions. Think about it, it took millions of years for humans to get the 2 eyes. So remote sensing from space, the time for that is now. And so I want you to remember just what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. And join us.
Thank you, E.T., for that. And thank you, Ilya, as well. If you've been following the chat, the announcement that AT just made about TWA, you can read more about that on TWA's blog. They have more details on what that partnership will actually mean. And if you have further questions, obviously drop them in the chat. So Dan, who is the COO of TWA, will be able to answer those in just a minute. So any questions about the partnership or anything else, please drop those into the chat. And I see Jean, who we were just talking about, is also in the chat. So of course he can answer those directly as well. So without further ado, we promised you guys a cooking show. I love watching cooking shows. Up to debate, which the best one is. I'm a big fan of MasterChef Australia, of course. But if you have any comments on that and any thoughts on that, let us know what you think, and let us know how TWA's cooking segment compares, because we're going to go live to Dan in Boston, and he's going to be joining us from his kitchen.
Thanks for the intro, Jivika, and thanks to everybody for joining our live stream, and to the over 200 investors that have believed in us thus far. As Jivika said, I'm Dan. I'm the COO of TWA. I've brought about a dozen biophysics instruments to market that have sold over 300 million, and about $150 million worth of satellites are in orbit right now as Director of Sales and Marketing for a few satellite companies. So, I'm sure you're wondering, why don't I have a bigger kitchen? That's, just proof that your money goes to the right place, right? What your real question probably is what does cooking have to do with space or have to do with weather? Why are we actually doing this?
Dad, before we go there, what's right there behind you in front of the window?
That is a replica of our satellite. That is the actual size of the satellite. And on the back of that satellite, the big reveal will be the names of the satellites. So there are 4 choices. They have been voted on. There was a runaway winner at the very end. We got down to our final 4. I think we had 25 to start. So there was Buzz and Woody. Oh, go ahead.
Up, Dad. So some people might be joining our live stream who don't know what the contest is about. So can you just give a little bit more information on what the contest was, how it came to be, and what the finalists are, and then let's see what people think has been the winner?
Absolutely. Sometimes I talk too fast or get ahead of myself. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So we ran a contest for about 2 months of Name That Spaceship. How many times have you been able to name something that goes up in orbit, right? We thought it would be fun. And especially because these are pairs, we want them to be a dynamic duo. So what we ended up with from that contest was our final 4, which are, as I mentioned, Jetstream and Wildfire, Buzz and Woody, Mac and Cheese, okay, and Yin and Yang.
Okay, so 4 finalists: Jetstream and Wildfire, Mac and Cheese, Buzz and Woody, and Yin and Yang. Is that what the audience has got to predict on which one actually ran away with the contest?
Yes, so please do predict, because even if everybody in the live stream voted, I don't know that we'd have catch up to which one ran away with it in the final 4.
Okay. All right. And then I'm also looking at some of the questions that we got when we were doing RSVPs. I know you're going to walk us through a very cool recipe in just a sec, but we've had requests for all sorts of things. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more, Dan, of how your passion for cooking first kind of manifested. So some people want to see you make some salmon, grilled salmon with broccoli and a nice stir fry would be nice. I think Victoria is saying that. And then some people are wanting a really nice pasta dish. So are we going to give the people what they want, or are you going to have your way with us here, Dan?
We'll kind of give the people what they want, I guess. I mean, this is all just an elaborate ruse so I could get my own cooking show. So I'm just trying to try that out here. So I'm not interested in space. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do love cooking. Mostly there's 5 kids. So, you have to cook, and you may as well eat something that everybody likes and that you like.
All right, Dan, thank you so much. I'll let you get on with it, and I'll check back in at the end.
Okay, thanks very much. We're going to start out by if we can actually get our camera for some of our ingredients, because the reason why I decided to choose cooking is really to illustrate 2 things. One is the missing ingredient. You see, we have a pizza on this side that has no sauce. This is very much like the weather forecast right now. It's missing something. We provide 3D wind data that is just completely missing from the forecast at this time. Obviously, these are both going to be delicious, but this one's going to be much better because it has the missing ingredient. The other reason is these are all commodities that you're looking at. They had to be grown. They represent several billion-dollar industries, and weather impacts over 20 industries. So I'm going to be making some cookies. The pizza will be for later. That was just to illustrate the point. It'll be exciting. These are my M&M cookies that are world-renowned. I mean, you just have to shove M&Ms in them, so not so bad. But it's quick, and we can do it here pretty easy. And maybe when we really think about it, though, tomatoes, for instance. If you're a farmer, just imagine being a farmer, and you want to increase the value of your land and grow more crops. Specific custom weather tailored to your solutions can help you do that. It actually helps you raise your crop yield. And then to get things to market, like let's just think about the M&Ms, retail, people's buying behavior is predicated on weather. A lot of things that are bought are because of weather. And even the glass bowls, obviously there's manufacturing involved. It had to get on a plane probably. It had to get on perhaps, well, not perhaps, but definitely a truck. So imagine you're a stockbroker and you want an edge in the market on these commodities, and weather is going to impact how things grow, the supply chain, how they get there. So it can give you valuable insights on the market. And for everyday people using them, whether you're the store, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a farmer, whether you're an insurance, of course, that's maybe one of the bigger ones, is ensuring that property damage, things of that nature, you can really spread your risk minimally by understanding what's going to happen. So it's basically knowing what's going to happen tomorrow today with better forecasting. And our satellites are going to provide 2 times more accurate hurricane forecast. And, you know, when I think about hurricanes, we're not just weather, we're really about extreme weather. We do have a specific and unique way of measuring hurricanes and also turning that into a specific forecast that's more accurate. And I think of Katrina, which was one of the most costliest of the hurricanes to ever hit anywhere in the world. And just by 12 hours earlier, we can reduce costs by about 30%. We actually have a case study of Katrina on our website, so I invite you to go check that out. The anniversary was not too long ago, just 2 weeks ago. It was 17 years ago. But on that note, I will get to baking these cookies and mixing them up. And while I'm doing that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Drew for our rattle. I'll turn it over to Drew for our trivia show, and we will go from there. I will meet you back shortly as the cookies cook. Hey.
Thanks, Dan. My name is Drew LePage. I'm the Chief Scientist of Tropical Weather Analytics. I'm basically, to extend Dan's metaphor, I'm basically the guy who has the recipe for the secret sauce that makes that pizza so delicious. I'm a physicist by training, and for the past 40 years, I've been specializing in digital image processing and machine vision for manufacturing environments, and most recently, of course, scientific use. For the past 30 years, I've been a remote sensing specialist, focusing mainly on atmospheric phenomena, working with AT since way back when, to do stereo observations from satellites in orbit, various types of weather phenomena over the years. So one of the other interests I have also is I am a freelance writer. I've been writing about space-related subjects for quite a while now. Some of my more recent work actually has appeared on the TWA website, weathersats.com. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, we have a bunch of blogs written by myself and other members of the team. So that don't forget to bring your 3D glasses so you can look at some of those pretty 3D pictures that we've generated. But finally, one of my interests has also been trivia. For quite some time, I've liked going to one of the local pubs to do weekly trivia night with my friends and win prizes and whatnot. And we're going to have a prize for today as well. And Dan will announce that later on. So whoever ends up winning this trivia contest will end up getting a special prize. And if we can just bring up the screen on the trivia so that we could see, you want to be logging into kahoot.it. The game pin is 6472216. And we can see some names coming up. We have Hannah and Alexandra, if we can get some more people coming on. And then we can get this game started. And unfortunately, you know, I play trivia games that aren't so easy. I like to do the ones that are really, really hard. And so some of these questions might be a bit on the tough side, but some of my colleagues, Ilya and Dan, have given you some hints on a couple of the answers on a couple of those questions. And we're just starting up. Here we go. And there's at the bottom of the screen, there's the web address once again with the code. And there we go. Finally, good. Now we're getting a good we're getting a good number. So please come on, log in and check in, and we can play the game. And like I said, there are prizes here. We got Jean or Jean, I don't know which, Space Nut, T-Pain, Derek, Stephanie, Brennan, Tom, Jay, Hannah, Alexandra. And anyway, just so you know how this works, once we will be popping up here on the screen will be the questions, and at the bottom of the screen there will be 4 answers. So you don't have to you don't have to know the answer right off, but you can probably make a pretty good guess as to what it is. And just as we're waiting for these last people to come in, we're getting in more. Pedro, AW. That's good. Let's see if we can get a few more in. I'm located north of Boston. I'm here in my home office, located not too far from the coast of New England. And Extra Space Geek. I got to like that one because unlike AT, I wasn't around for the launch of Sputnik, but I did grow up during the Apollo missions and whatnot. And that's one of the things that spurred me on to have an interest in space flight. So, and one of my dreams from way back when was actually to build and launch my own satellite. And after all these years, I'm finally being given the opportunity as the chief scientist of this company to do this. In any case, I'm here north of Boston, and just to you know, right now it's a very fall feeling day. It's nice and sunny, 67 degrees. It's a nice change of pace from the 90-degree weather that we've been suffering from here. And we're still getting on some more people. That's good to see. Come on, just join in at that URL, kahoot.it. I'm used to playing a different kind of non-online, in-person type of trivia game. But from what I understand, we're ready to go. Okay, let's go. So for our first question, if we can get that up, here we go with the good countdown, in a good space flight type fashion. And here we go with the quiz. What is the vertical wind velocity of updrafts in supercell thunderstorms? And if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there are 4 answers. Give your best guess, or if you know the answer to the question, fantastic. And these supercell thunderstorms, these are the large thunderstorms, especially those you find out in the Midwest, that are associated with severe thunderstorms, severe wind downdrafts, micro bursts, and of course, worst case scenario, tornadoes and whatnot. And our satellite system is able to measure the winds to tell us what those are. And the correct answer is in excess of 90 miles per hour. And it looks like 5 of our contestants have gotten the right answer. And with our Hurricane Hunter satellites, we can actually measure those updrafts to an accuracy of a couple of miles per hour, giving meteorologists a unique insight into the strength of these building storms, which can be so damaging out in the Midwest especially. But even here, smaller size thunderstorms, those too can be measured with based on their updraft velocities. And if we go on to the next question, here we go. We have an Elon. I wonder who that might be. With 960 points is currently at the top. And our second question, what operational satellites make measurements of vertical winds? And like I was saying, vertical winds, in addition to the horizontal wind components, very, very important for making weather forecasts and determining the potential strength of powerful thunderstorms and whatnot. Also, we find these types of things associated with hurricanes, which is the original focus of our missions with our satellites. but also with other kinds of extreme weather phenomena. And the final answer is none. And that is correct. There are no other satellites making 3D measurements of vertical winds, including the vertical winds, which are so important. There are several satellite constellations out there that do make various types of wind measurements, but they're not measuring that vertical component or make the assumption that all the winds that they're observing are just in the horizontal. So we, with the Hurricane Hunter satellites, have that unique capability to bring you that type of information to improve forecasting. And if we go on to the next question. Oh, and wait, there we go. Oh, Elon is still up there with 1541. How much did it cost to develop, build, and launch NOAA's latest generation of 4 GO satellites? These are the large satellites that developed by NASA and run by NOAA that hang on geosynchronous orbit, looking down continuously over the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean to produce those captivating video loops of the cloud motions during the course of a day. And these supply the most of the information that's being used for doing various types of weather forecasting. And the correct answer is 11.7 billion. And it looks like, it's only a couple of people who got that. Now, these satellites are huge. They're metric ton satellites. They cost a lot of money to develop. They have huge instrument suites trying to do everything for everybody as much as possible. Our satellite system is geared towards answering a very specific question, the altitudes of clouds and how those clouds move in 3 dimensions. And as a result of this focused approach with small satellites and off-the-shelf technology, we're able to do this for a relatively bargain basement price of $30 million. If we can go on to see who's up in the lead here, Elon is still up there. Uli, Hannah's moving up. That's good to see. Alexandra and Stephanie. Our next question is, when was the first weather satellite launched? If you were paying attention to Ilya's opening statement, he gave a hint on that, so you can choose the appropriate answer at the bottom. And weather satellites, the introduction of weather satellites totally changed how weather is done. Before that, meteorologists had to rely on scattered networks of weather stations and buoys and ships at sea, and missed a lot of information necessary to make accurate forecasts. And the correct answer is April the 1st, 1960. That first satellite was developed and launched by NASA, and it was called TIROS, and it was used to make the first observations of the Earth's weather from orbit, and was able to, was the first in a long line of satellites that now almost continuously for the last 62 years have been watching weather from orbit, so that all these storms and the conditions that are driving them are being watched from orbit and improving weather forecasts incredibly. Let's see what we are right now with whoa, there we go. Alexandra's come up. Elon's come down a bit, and we got Space Nut who's now in there. If you look at our number 5 question, how much does the U.S. spend each year to maintain its fleet of Hurricane Hunter aircraft? Now, these are the aircraft that are flown by NOAA and also by the United States Air Force that then fly out into these storms to hurricanes and forming tropical depressions and whatnot to get in situ measurements of what is going on there. They are the gold standard, but unfortunately they have a very limited range. They can only look at storms that are within the range of the aircraft close to the United States. So let's see what the correct answer is. $250 million is what it costs to maintain these fleet of Hurricane Hunter aircraft. And as I was saying, they are stuck looking at only the storms that are closest to the United States. The Hurricane Hunter weather satellites that we are developing, those will be able to have examine storms, measure winds, 3D winds, and do so globally. So anywhere on the planet where these storms come up, we'll be able to take and observe them and supply vital information to meteorologists. And if we can look at our leaderboard here, see who's doing what. Oh, we have AW moving up and a Derek moving up. Alexandra's holding on with 1546 points. So let's go to the next question, number 6. What other governments, aside from the United States, have Hurricane Hunter aircraft? And here we have a list down at the bottom. Choose your best guess. Actually, you might end up being a little bit surprised by the answer. as you can see, the United States government spent $250 million a year to maintain their fleets of Hurricane Hunter aircraft. We come in at essentially a bargain basement price for $30 million for our initial constellation of satellites that can then globally observe these storms long before they become a hazard. And the correct answer is Hong Kong. And oh, looks like only 4 people got that one right. Yeah, it was Hong Kong. But it has a small fleet of relatively small aircraft that are going out into the South China Sea that are able to look at typhoons and other types of tropical disturbances approaching the coast of China. And recently in the news, I forget the name of the typhoon. Shanghai was actually hit. That was one of the answers, the wrong answer. But Shanghai just got hit by a very powerful, I think, a Category 2 typhoon. So these are the types of storms that need to be monitored to give governments their heads up so they can prepare properly for these upcoming storms. And if we look at our list of people, oh, there we go. Elon's back up on top, and it's time to come up. And we also have Stephanie now on the top 5. If we go to our next question, question number 7 out of 10. What was the most costly Atlantic hurricane season? Hurricanes are just one type of tropical storm. Hurricanes is the name given to tropical cyclones that occur close to the United States coast on the Pacific side and on the Atlantic side. These hurricanes are among the most powerful and the most destructive storms that we have. We really need to be able to forecast what's going on with these. And it turns out that the correct answer, and 2 people got that right, is the year 2017. That was, in that particular year, the total losses of property losses were in excess of $250 billion. So it's a relatively small amount of money that we're spending on satellites like ours, or even the larger satellites that the United States government and other entities are orbiting to monitor these storms and get accurate forecasts. And we add that special ingredient of the winds and able to characterize the strength of powerful storms before they actually hit. And if we could look at our leaderboard here and see where we're at, and people are moving up. Yuli and AW are moving up, and we still have Elon at 46 points, actually doing very well, everybody. So what was the most costly Atlantic hurricane? And down below, you see the list of the various hurricanes. And oddly enough, and I'll give you a little bit of a hint, oddly enough, the most destructive Atlantic hurricanes to have hit have at least 9 out of the 10 most destructive ones that have ever hit the United States have hit this country since the turn of this century. So as a partially result of climate change plus natural cycles, we are hitting the point where we're getting the more destructive storms. And the correct answer is Hurricane Katrina. Dan gave us a hint about that during his segment we just saw. And Hurricane Katrina, that was the one that hit Louisiana and inundated large sections of New Orleans, causing huge amounts of damage. And if I can just check my notes here, that ended up being $125 billion. And let's see, we are now up to AEW is now up in the lead at 2830 points. We have Space Nut and Alexander moving up in the standings. And if we can just go on to the next question. What were the highest winds ever recorded for a hurricane, typhoon, tropical cyclone worldwide? And here we have here's a list of potential answers. Put in your best guess. And it should be remembered that aside from very localized systems, like, for instance, a tornado, hurricanes, typhoons, tropical cyclones, physically, they're all the same type of phenomena. They have the most destructive winds of any type of weather event that we find in nature today. And in addition to the winds now, we're also finding that the rain has become, and the flooding that's associated with it is also a problem. And here, the correct answer is 215 miles an hour. That wind was experienced from Hurricane Patricia on October 23rd, 2015. And this made landfall on the Pacific coast of Mexico. And once it got inland, with those kind of winds, you just basically scour the landscape clear, and only the most hardened buildings can survive that type of event. And now if we can just take a look and see where we are as we come up to our last question. Okay, we got Stephanie moving up. AW is still in the lead. Elon has dropped down just a touch. And here we go. This will be our last question. What are the total losses of life worldwide due to hurricanes, typhoons, and tropical cyclones? And again, choose the proper answer down here at the bottom. And in addition to being causing so much property damage, tropical cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons, they can also be responsible for huge losses of life and improved forecasting, especially for countries that can't afford Hurricane Hunter aircraft. Our satellite constellation can provide their weather authorities with vital information that can help better prepare their countries. And the answer is 10,000. I'm surprised. Nobody seemed to get that one. So that's the average. And actually, compared to some historical storms, if we go back to the 1800s, before the advent of weather satellites and ship-to-shore communications, these storms could hit areas totally unannounced. And there were some storms from the 19th century that had losses estimated to be literally 100,000 or more people. So we've come a long way, but with our new satellite technology, we can get even further along. So I think we're going to hold for the moment on announcing our winner. We'll be announcing that after the next segment, I believe, with Dan. And so we're going to go back to Dan in the kitchen and see how far he's coming along with the cookies. And I hope I also maybe let us know. Well, we'll discuss who's going to what the winner of the trivia contest is going to get in a bit. So back to Dan.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. And I'm dying to see who won the trivia game. I wish I could have participated. I think I would have won. But in any event, I'm going to check on the cookies and see how they're coming and give you a valuable tip. I like my cookies perfectly round, so I always use cupcake holders because they actually form perfectly round and they don't spread out and not get all messy. So that's maybe one of the biggest tips of these cookies. And they're actually about done. They probably need about 5 more minutes. In the interim, I think we're going to have Jivika on and the rest of the team to talk about the prize. Oh, wait a minute. Yes. The next thing we are going to do is actually see the IBM videos from the weather company to see the actual practical application from somebody in the field that's actually using weather data to improve industries. And these will roll right now.
I am an energy forecaster, primarily for commodity traders and energy companies. What these commodity traders and energy companies have in mind when we're talking about tropical storms potentially impacting the U.S. is they want to know how it's going to impact the markets. The most obvious way is if you have a landfalling tropical system, you're going to damage the infrastructure when it moves on shore. So you're talking about power lines, etc. And when you damage the infrastructure, there's a cost associated with reparations. But the other way, the way that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think about is how it impacts the demand for power and energy as the systems move on shore. A tropical storm might impact the Gulf Coast, for example. That will have a two-pronged effect on energy prices. First of all, you're going to disrupt a lot of the supply that comes in off the Gulf of Mexico because that's where we have a lot of our pipelines and offshore platforms that get natural gas and oil from the Gulf of Mexico. So if you have a tropical storm that moves through that area, you're going to disrupt the supply. You're going to have shut-ins, so they pull people off the platforms, and that can take several days and then several days to put them back on. And all during that time, you're basically limiting the supply. Satellites are integral in dissemination of model data. So when you are looking at a tropical system moving through a given area, you have the typical global models, but they won't resolve the details of this system very well. IBM GraphML, which is a very high resolution model, and you're incorporating satellite data into that model, will have a better handle on the intricacies of the storm, the smaller details, the fine mesh details that you couldn't get from a typical model. If our model can see things that the other models can't, some of the smaller scale details, we can theoretically, and it's actually been proven, get a better handle on the track, at least in the short term, to get a better sense of where that storm is going and what area is going to be impacted the hardest. I love the concept of satellites that have a very specific purpose. These very specifically designed smaller satellites are just targeted at one specific purpose. And in the camera world, that would be equivalent of one fixed focal length lens that can't necessarily do a lot of things, but the one thing it does really well. And that, I think, is really the future of satellites and incorporating that into our data, because if we're able to, say, target one particular system in the tropics with this satellite that is sole intention is to provide data on that one storm, that's much better than a satellite that's up there designed to look at the entire, say, northern hemisphere. You're going to get much more data, you're going to get much more specific data, and theoretically, you should be able to use that to make better forecasts, more accurate forecasts going forward. But yes, I am all for these higher resolution, specific targeted satellite systems that are going up now.
I forecast for all that commercial airlines worldwide. They fly foreign and domestic and across the oceans, and lots of times they will encounter tropical systems. So we have to provide the airlines with enough heads up to let them know, look, don't go too far, get too far close to this system, or, you know, if it's within 100 to 150 miles to the north or northeast, you might experience some occasional moderate to maybe moderate or even severe turbulence. And we have to keep them abreast of that situation for the safety of their passengers as well as of their crew. We're not worried about the medium or long range. We're worried about the real time and within the next 6 to 12 hours. So satellite data is integral to the success of our operations and the safety of the airlines and its passengers. And so a lot of emphasis is placed on updated and great satellite information for us to access. It's very important to have updated satellites and real-time data, because I could tell you right now, when I was on the international desk last week, for instance, I was forecasting the Indian Ocean and southwestern Pacific Ocean area, and we lost satellite data from at least from 2 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. that night. I had no satellite data there. I had to do the best I could by running with what I had access to with models, but otherwise I was lost with no satellite data. And satellite data, like I said, it's huge. It means everything to us in forecasting for the airlines. You know, the last 10 to 20 years, we've seen real increased tropical activity across the Atlantic, for instance, and more intense activity. So we need to have these satellites up and running in full capacity for us as aviation forecasters to do our job. If they could focus their attention on one area, say the Southwest Pacific, and then you have another area being focused on in the Atlantic, then I think everything will work out in our favor.
Great hearing from some of the experts in the field, and it's a good time to kind of talk about really, we sell 3 different types of products. And the first is for meteorologists that are experts like that, a big data product that they can actually take, put into their models and use. And then we also sell hurricane forecasts to the countries. There's 20 of them that are vulnerable to the hurricanes. And then there's an end user app that's a low cost thing that helps for a specific situation. So the data comes in, goes through a weather prediction model, and gives users the answer that they need so they can either, better run their fleet, better run their trucking company, make stock trades, and like the farmer instance that I used several times. And welcome back, Jivika. And I'll stop talking for a moment and turn it back to the host.
No, Dan, we're just about to get into Q&A. So actually this is perfect because that was a question I had as well. So thank you for explaining exactly what the interviewees in the videos we just saw were kind of referring to. Before we get into the questions that have already been submitted, there's still time, so we'll be picking questions in the order that they came in. So you can still add any questions you have in the chat, and then we'll be picking from those that were submitted during the RSVP process for this event as well. Before we go into that, I think there was a little bit of confusion about what names we have still going for the satellite contest. So can we bring up those options on screen just so people can see? And I understand that we've had the winners picked, But are there any predictions as to what has finally won? You can drop that in the chat as well. All right, so moving on to our first question. Can we bring the first question onto the stage? All right, so we've got a question from Eric. Do meteorologists currently pay a third party like TWA for data, or do they collect their own?
They do. So the way private weather actually works is every private weather company takes billions of dollars of assets that are government assets. Those are weather stations, weather balloons, satellites, and then they add it to their own models, and they might have more assets as well. So companies like the Weather Company, which is an IBM company, DTN is a large commercial weather company, and AccuWeather is a large commercial weather company. A lot of times meteorologists or news agencies or even aviation, they actually buy all three services, and they basically allow the end user to decide which forecast they might trust the most, or which data they may trust the most. But in any event, meteorologists use usually private weather and government weather assets to get their forecast. Got
it. Yeah, it's such an interesting proposition, because when you and I are watching TV and we get the weather forecast, we just assume that people have this information, but obviously someone has to pay to fund to get that information, which is why what you're doing is so important. Definitely that makes more sense. I believe we have another question as well that was sent in by Derek, pardon me. Do the satellites capture data from solar flares?
They will not. Space weather is something that I've always been interested, but we're not space weather. We are in space measuring the weather on Earth. But obviously that will have huge impacts on other satellites. And at some point, I'd love to make something like that.
We've got a follow-up on our YouTube page, actually, which won't come up on the screen. But the question we have is, why are you using paired satellites? What makes that unique?
Well, the measuring technique was developed over, I think, about 10 years and $100 million of NASA and DoD money. And then after that, those are direct payments made to the company Visidyne at the time before we became TWA. And then after that, to prove the method, we went on board the space station. Well, we had the space station carry out our mission for 5 years to prove the technique. And the reason why two satellites are used is to get images and video of the cloud features, whether it's a hurricane or any other kind of cloud. And from there, it takes the image and it builds a 3D model based on the location and the angle of the satellites to the image. And then there's a lot of algorithms and processing, and our unique, like Drew said, our unique special sauce is applied to it. And this builds a 3D model of vertical and horizontal wind speeds at extremely high resolution.
Got it. We have a follow-up from Derek from the chat. He's asking, does an increase in all the space traffic affect TWA's ability to operate?
It will not in the near future. We will be in a slightly different orbit. We'll be in the polar orbit. So we shouldn't be running into anybody anytime soon. However, we are really considering it. At some times we thought that maybe propulsion wasn't necessary. But at this point, I think for evasive action, propulsion will be probably necessary just to avert anything like that. Right now we're raising to get our first two into orbit, and we can sell a data product once we get those two into orbit. But at the end of it, the full constellation will be about 5 pairs, so 10 satellites.
Got it. That makes sense. I believe we have 1 or 2 more questions. Right. So I'm guessing that countries without early warning systems are third world countries with little money. Can they really afford $10 million for an annual subscription? Good question.
That's a good question, but China and India and Japan certainly are affected by hurricanes, and Australia, again, another one. So there are plenty of countries that could certainly afford 10 to 15 million. And also, when we think about weather, really, it's not about it costs $10 million to get this hurricane forecast. What you're actually getting is you're saving. A hurricane blows through, and if you have that time, you can prevent loss of life and billions of dollars of damage. Who would not want to pay a couple of, $10 million to save $500 million per year? It works out very much that way.
Right. That makes complete sense. And, as someone from India, we see this all the time. If only we have news anchors on TV always saying, if only we had more time, if only we had better predictions. I'm not making this up. This is actually what happened. So I do think 10 million might be steep for some countries, but, as Dan said, you're actually investing that to save more lives, property, infrastructure. And so it's actually quite a worthwhile investment, I would say. Any other questions that we have? All right, from Nancy, who are your business partners thus far?
So there's a lot of interest from the government as far as NASA, NWS, and NOAA, obviously. But from private weather, we have letters of interest from Tomorrow.io, who's a commercial weather satellite company as well. They do something a little bit different than what we do. So we're not in. It's the funny thing is we are complementary to all the other weather satellites that are out there. So it's not a competitive aspect. It's just we're providing something completely different and unique that helps them all over. So we will look to build, across multiple industries. So it just will not be government. It just will not be the military, which obviously military aviation and weather is a big deal for the military aspect of things, and just private industries as well.
That makes sense. I think we have one more question. Time for just one more. Are meteorologists incentivized to provide more accurate forecasts? Pulling back the curtain a little bit, Dan, let us know.
Absolutely. So think about it this way. 500 million people per year actually watch hurricane coverage and extreme weather forecasts. So being first, being reliable, and being accurate is a big deal. And why does somebody tune into your broadcast over somebody else's? The thing that we can provide other than accuracy is these 3D images are stunning. They give you a look into the hurricane or cloud feature unlike anything else. And so if you want to visually captivate an audience and have them come with you, have the greatest, compelling visual story that you can tell and have the most accurate and earliest forecast. And that's what would incentivize meteorologists to want this.
Right. And we had a follow-up question earlier. Are you currently working with any meteorologists? What's your relationship with that world, if anything?
Yeah, so we have several commercial partners on the private weather side that have developed weather apps so that our data will just go into. So we don't have a long development time, by the way, for these apps. They plug right into existing products and can enhance those. And people that have distribution of these products and a customer base already. And for meteorologists, we have talked to some of the biggest shows that that are producers for those shows, and they're interested in, hey, once you're up in space, we'd be very interested to start to get that data.
Got it. Nancy has a follow-up. What is TWA bringing to the table versus what we currently have? What is it that makes TWA different?
It is the unique global coverage of wind measurements at high frequency. So there's a lot of uncovered territory, especially the polar vortex, which drives a lot of weather patterns across the globe. There aren't many satellites that are orbiting the poles. In fact, there's one right now called the Aeolus, which measures wind and has proven to tremendously improve the weather forecast. And anybody that's interested, I can send a link to that paper. It's really a landmark paper, one of my favorites. So that's just measuring some of the wind over the poles. So that's what we're bringing to the table that's different. But also, there's open oceans and the jet streams aren't measured in the frequency or resolution that we will measure in. And our unique way of modeling hurricanes does something a bit different. And that's how if you go to our website, you can see case studies of what we would have done better, how we could have done better. But that's a unique aspect of the hurricane forecast as well.
Got it. All right. I was going to wrap up with one last question. So let's just do one last question, Dan, and then let's get Drew back on to announce the winner of the trivia, of course. So Brennan is asking, in your experience, where in the world do the most interesting weather formations occur? And if you could define what interesting means as well from the perspective of someone who looks at weather all day, that would be pretty interesting, I would say.
I'm embarrassed to say this. I am a space guy. I know about satellites, but I don't know much about weather. So I would say for me, actually, New England is one of the more interesting places because it just changes so fast and so frequently. But you might get dumped on in snow, and then in summertime it gets unbelievably hot and almost feels like hotter than anywhere else. So for me, it's New England, but I'm sure the weather geeks out there would definitely pick something else and have a better choice.
Right, and I'm sure everyone has their own opinions of what the most interesting and best and worst weather in the world is that they have maybe experienced themselves. All right, thanks so much, Dan, for that Q&A. As always, for anyone whose questions we didn't get to, you can definitely still continue to engage with TWA on their discussion page. So if you go on to their Space Ventures pitch page, if you click on the discussion tab, you can leave a question and Dan and the rest of the team will be able to see and respond to that directly. So this isn't your last opportunity to get any burning questions asked and answered. So let's move on to bringing Drew back. I believe the two of you have some prizes to award.
Thanks, Jivika. Yeah, we do have some great prizes to offer for the for the winner of the trivia contest. And just to amplify a little bit on what Dan said, first of all, the most interesting weather is the weather that's affecting you. And Dan and I live here in New England, out in the boonies somewhat, and that's very important to us. But it also should be emphasized, the unique thing that we bring that no other weather satellite system that's currently in operation has is the ability to do these stereo observations. So we get very high resolution, very accurate determinations of the positions and altitudes of the clouds. And by measuring how those changes change over time, we can derive the winds very accurately in all three dimensions. But in any case, let's get to the trivia winners. I want to see who ended up winning this. If we can get the podium up to see who got in. Because the last thing we want to do is have me keep talking. And here we go. And the trivia winner is, drum roll. Here's the podium. Third place, Alexandra with 3 out of 10 questions. That's a good try. Then we have Elon with 3 out of 10. And first place with 4 out of 10 and 2830 points is AW. Congratulations to all three. And I also want to thank everybody else who participated in the trivia contest. I hope you found it to be as much fun as I found it to be. So we do have a special prize for the trivia winner. Dan, what is that prize?
The prize will be these delicious cookies. They will be perfectly round, sent to you. And you will also get my baller cookie recipe on a card in case you want to replicate these delicious things.
The Space Ventures people will get in touch with the winner and get their contact information. We can ship those cookies out to you. Homemade New England baked cookies. I want one right now.
I'll send you some too, Drew.
Okay, great. I haven't started baking my cookies yet. It's been just a bit too hot until very, very recently. So what's our next segment now? I think we're going to be announcing for this. Oh, it's time to find out what the winner is of our satellite contest. We get the rest of the crew on board now. So let's hear about that.
Yep, long and awaited. So we've been talking about names for a year even before we opened up this contest. So it's kind of fun to resolve our first pair. I know I'm naming the next pair, so that's off the table for everybody else. And I'm curious, AT, who do you think won out of our names?
Am I voting or am I guessing?
You're going to have to guess who won. You already had your vote and your suggestion. Your suggestion made it to the final four, in fact.
Well, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with yin and yang. They just don't work by not being a pair.
Good one. I like that. And Ilya, how about you? Which one do you think won?
I'll go with yin and yin as well because I like that.
Okay, Drew, it's up to you to guess.
Well, I would want to pick what AT picked because, well, he outranks me in many, many ways. But I'm going to go with Buzz and Woody just because, I like Buzz Lightyear and I still remember Buzz Aldrin and watching him make his first steps on the moon along with Neil Armstrong back in July of 1969. So I have a lot of childhood memories associated with that. So who actually won.
Well, we'll see. But I do want to say, so hopefully, if everything goes well, our first 2 satellites will launch by 2024. The investment that you make today helps us get to that goal. We really want to get into production and make sure that we have our software all in place so that we can execute this mission, which is going to save lives, and it's going to reduce the impact of climate change by billions. I always say it, even if we cut emissions tomorrow, the problems that we're having right now need solutions right now, not in the far future if we cut back emissions. These weather products, better forecast, more earlier forecast is going to help us do that. And so I will reveal and show off again. This is the actual size of our satellites. And on the back, I have written the contest winners' names. And they are... Buzz and Woody have won the contest.
Like I said, I love Buzz.
They barely made it into, that's actually who Buzz was named after, by the way, but those 2 barely made it into the final 20-ish or so, and then barely made it into the final 4, and then it exploded from there.
Well, it certainly helps that Buzz Lightyear has a new movie, I think, that's come out on Disney Plus, and I'm looking forward to watching that along with some Star Wars and other things. But
nice plug.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan, Drew, again, AT. This was probably the most creative stream that I've ever hosted, and I think it shows because this is definitely one of the most creative, free-thinking teams that we've worked with at Space Ventures. So just to close us out, I'd like to thank everyone for attending our stream and for engaging with us, for sending in your comments, your suggestions, your questions. It really helps. It really makes us want to do more of these, want to give you more access, want to keep engaging with our community. So we really appreciate you staying tuned with us and watching the live stream. And if you had a good time, definitely share the link with your friends and family, anyone else who you think would be interested in learning more about some of the weather phenomena that we discussed, some of the technology, some of the capabilities that TWA's products are going to be unlocking for us within the next couple of years. It's very, very important for so many people around the world who are adversely affected by weather. And what the TWA team is doing is very, very exciting for many reasons. So thank you so much again for joining us. I'm going to pass it over to Dan in just a minute, and he's going to remind you, as am I, that TWA is going to be on the platform for T-minus 15 days. So today's the 15th of September, 2022. Whenever you're watching this, the end of September, September 30th is when you will no longer be able to show your support financially for TWA. So if you are considering making an investment, the time is now. Go through the pitch, go onto the discussion tab, ask any questions, see the latest updates, read the press release about TCWA's partnership, how that's going to accelerate some of the progress that the TWA team is going to be able to make. We put the website earlier. Nicole on our team is going to put it in the chat again, weathersats.com. That's the link where you can see lots of the articles that Drew, the chief scientist, mentioned that he's been writing. And follow us, follow Space Ventures on social media to get more updates on the next stream. Follow TWA on their social media to get updates on how they're planning to use the funds raised on our platform this time. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. And over to you, Dan, to close us out.
Thanks, Jivika. I appreciate that. And thanks again for everybody sticking with us and participating in the live stream. And congratulations to the cookie winner. Maybe I'll try one first and make sure that they taste good. But the thing I did want to close out with is we talked a lot about the impact of these satellites. But what is our exit strategy? How do you sell weather is something that I get asked all the time. And a couple of things is that, this is maybe one of the strangest projects in that somebody's already paid for the R&D, and it's already been proven over years of observation on the space station. So that would have taken a long time to get there and a lot of money. Space stations obviously aren't cheap, but there's also no sensor on there. So we have cameras that are space-proven cameras that are going to fly on satellites that are space-proven satellites that have hardware. So our commissioning stage, by not having a sensor that has to be proven, is very short. So our window for delivering data products is once we are up, just in a matter of weeks, we will be able to deliver data products for sale. I'm really excited about that. And so who else would be excited about that? When we think about, there was a time a few years ago, Monsanto bought the Climate Corporation for $1 billion. IBM, according to reports, bought the weather company for $2 billion. So private weather it's a big business, and it will only grow as the weather gets weirder. So I'm not saying that there's an infinite amount of exit strategies, but it's almost as if there are companies within a company, because FedEx, UPS, Amazon would want our wind data to simplify their supply chain and their routes for their flights and for their trucks. BASF it's a multinational agribusiness. They would want those apps to help their farmers that buy their products actually increase their crop yield. So all these companies that you can think of, Berkshire Hathaway, for instance, would want an edge because they can use weather to trade better and make just better decisions and more profits. So that's really how we picture this going once we get our weather satellites up. And I think that that's going to be it for me. I will throw it back to Jivika. And if there are any other questions, though, she can put it back to me, I guess. And again, I appreciate everybody that has believed in us and invested to this point. It is coming to a close. We've got only 15 more days to raise more. And you can obviously go to the Space Ventures page or go to our page, and you'll get there that way as well. Thank you so much, everybody.